All right, welcome to Rapid Fire Manufacturing with Markus Stolmar down in Miamisburg at United Grinding. He's the CEO, has been with the company for what, 20 years now?
26 years, pretty much. Yeah.
26 years. Well,
Yeah.
Markus, thanks for having me. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. I want to start with your journey into manufacturing. How did you get into this?
Yeah. So, as you can imagine, long story, but I try to cut it short. Growing up in Germany, where I'm born, went to, I would say, we have different ways through school. So here you have high school, it's always 12 years, but we have different ways to go through school. You can either do 9, 10, or 12 years. Parents put me in the 10th grade or 10-year course, so to say, path. And when I came out of it, I didn't want to go to school anymore. I didn't. I mean, school was kind of, I had it here. And then in Germany, you have to make some kind of an education, an apprenticeship and something like that. So I started to apply for apprenticeships, and it was pretty difficult at the time. So I applied all over the place. I mean, pretty long distance away from home, I finally find something, and I became a technical draftsman, and that's how I came into manufacturing. At the time, there was not a CAD CAM, around. So you always had an engineer. The engineer typically sketches something and gives it to the technical draftsman, and technical draftsman puts the, tolerances on and the norms and all of that stuff. And then after that, it became a print, and it was stored and, basically in a huge cabinet with all the other prints. So that's how I started into manufacturing. And, the first year of this apprenticeship is like tool and die maker. It was milling and turning and you file and stuff like that. And so after that, I kind of, working on the shop and working in the office, I thought, there's something more, that I want to do.
Yeah.
So I went to university at the time. I worked industrial management was what I went for, which I think today, when I look back, it was the right way for me, what I picked, because it's like, a little bit about engineering,
Yeah,
and a little bit about manufacturing but also a little bit about business administration. So you kind of, how are things made and what are things costing? So it was kind of a good combination. And that's how I got into it at the beginning. So and in Germany, a lot of it is manufacturing, obviously,
Yeah.
so it's kind of I would see a more or less typical path for a lot of people. And then, I started, finished university, didn't want to go to school right away, didn't want to work further, didn't want to, I just wanted to get a break. I went to Canada, where I have an uncle, for a year, just a time out there.
Yeah.
Didn't do much, mountain biking, and then I ran out of money, and then I had to decide, okay, what do I want to do next? And so I applied for a job in Germany for the company Zoller, which makes presetting equipment. And I worked there for a little while, 3 months maybe. And then Eberhard Zoller, the founder, he came and he said, hey, do you want to go to the US to help my son build up the United States subsidiary?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sounds good. I was pretty, when you're young, you just jump into things, don't think much about it. I went there, and it was a great time. It was like a startup kind of feeling. You did like everything and anything, and it kind of taught you a little bit, okay, what you like, what you don't like. And then, it came to the decision, do I want to stay in the US and stay there and have a permanent job and continue with Zoller, or not? So I decided, okay, I'm going back, because when you were coming from a different country, at the beginning, when you come over the first time, you always compare. You compare everything. Like, I know this, oh, this is not like it's home in the home. I know this, oh, this is not like it's home. So you get very kind of comparable, and then you kind of critical about certain things, which
that draw you back to your home country.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that better.
Yeah, exactly. So it drew me back a little bit. But then over time, I kind of, I was in Germany again, worked for a US company, Cannondale, to make bicycles, and I just was in a sales position and traveled and visit. And it came about that one day I got a call from a friend of mine who worked with me at Zoller, and he says, hey, I'm with this other company called Walter, and they also make measuring equipment, for cutting tools and stuff like that. You want to come back and go to the US? I'm like, ooh, I don't know. And then I was a little bit more open to the US, because I lived there for a little while and I understood the culture a little bit better. And then I went back, and I never turned around. I basically stayed and within the company. I made a career, from basically I started as a product manager and now I'm, CEO and president. So yeah, I did many, many different jobs.
Yeah.
So this is how I ended up, in manufacturing.
So did you ever anticipate you were going to be the CEO of the company when you're a product manager? Did you ever have aspirations like, I want to be CEO someday?
No, not at that time. I think I think at that time I just tried to find my footing. When you're young, I wasn't married at the time, no kids. I
Yeah.
mean, what I enjoyed about the job was the travel, being in a different state. I pretty much visited all the states, the customers, going to the customers, help the customers, work with them, see what they do, understand what they do. So I think that was kind of initially, the learning aspect of the industry, I think, was the big thing for me. It wasn't really that I wanted to be a manager or that I wanted to be a CEO and president. I
Yeah.
think, that was at that time far away. But at one point, throughout the career, the more responsibility I got, at one point I said to myself, it would be nice to be a CEO and president of my own company or of a company. I didn't expect it to be United Grinding,
Yeah.
honestly, but of a company.
Yeah.
So
No, that's because I know there's a lot of young leaders out there that are maybe they have those aspirations or not, and it's just how do you navigate in a company where maybe there's no management openings, but you still want leadership to kind of give you some opportunities or some leadership equity, I should say.
yeah, I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy. I mean, many cases you have to be patient. Okay.
Yeah.
For me, I had the opportunity initially when I was product manager, I had to do everything. It was a small niche product I had responsibility for.
Yeah.
There was not a lot of support within the company for it because, I mean, the thing that made the most money were the grinding machines. It wasn't the measuring machines. So it was always a byproduct. So you kind of had to do everything. You had to sell a little bit. You had to, learn about the applications. You had to talk to customers, see what their needs are, and kind of, develop your own kind of business. That was the big advantage for me. And I think that showed people that I had a little bit of broader view of things than just maybe a specific job, So it was that responsibility. And I think that's what you can do today too. It doesn't matter which position it is, just look over, the, edge a little bit of your job and see, okay, what's there? What are they doing? How are they doing? How does this interact with my job? And as you do that, if you show interest in that, I think that will show other people that you have interest in a broader kind of, management position, And again, sometimes it's patience, I mean, I had phases that I'm like, how long, do I ever gonna stay in this position or not? And sometimes, you may be doing another year and see how it goes. I understand people, if you get a good opportunity, I totally understand that. I mean, we have people here, that had a good opportunity outside. They move on, they take their job. I totally get that. I mean, that's, you don't have to stick with the same company like I did for a long time. For me, it was just opportunity came along. People came to me, they offered me something and I just grabbed the opportunity. Was it always the job I wanted to do? No, but it was always a new experience and I'm always open for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of jumps out at me too, because I don't think people nowadays are expected to just jump jobs every 2 years.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily agree with that, but I mean, everyone's got a different situation. So if you're going to better yourself by doing that, that's good. But I guess from a leadership standpoint, what is the benefits of staying loyal to a company?
I mean, loyal to a company, I think you learn about all the people in the company. I mean, when I look at United Grinding today, I mean, I work with people for a long time.
Yeah.
I know their families, they have kids, it's basically seeing how you grow together. I think this is the big thing that you have when you stick with a company for a long time, that, to be successful together as a team. And also the big thing is to respect each other. It doesn't matter what job we have around here. Every job is important. And I think that's what you should never forget, and there's good times and there's bad times. But what we try to do is really go through the bad times together and not lose people, try to stay. And then in the good times, you need to put the extra effort in. So yeah, it's easy to hire more people, but you have to stay at a certain level because our business particularly has a lot of ups and downs. The machine tool business can be very volatile, and it's an investment good, and investments are not happening every year. There's cycles where there's very little investments, and these can be very tough, for a company like ours. And I think when you have a strong team and you can work together and you can kind of optimize things, in the good times to really maintain a high productivity and be really good, I think that makes a difference. So I think, that's a key, I think, as a team. And that's also the nice thing about being part of one company, because you go through these ups and downs, and you understand, when we have a down again, this is not the end of the world. Okay. It's manageable. We have done this before, just look back a little bit in history, things happen. The pandemic, it happened, the financial crisis, it happened. Was it good? Was it a good time? No, it wasn't. But we know how to work through this.
Probably makes you more adaptable when new situations come up too. It's like, hey, we went through it, say it's a financial crisis.
Yeah.
Like, we have some sort of idea of how we can navigate this new issue, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I like that too, because it's like a sports team. Like, you don't initially, sometimes people have that, what's called synergy, but it takes time, right?
Yeah,
so if you only give it a year,
Yeah.
you might not have enough time to build that synergy with the team where it's like, oh, wow, I really like this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing I think for people, it doesn't matter young or old. You have to have fun in your job. If you don't enjoy your job, okay, don't continue doing it. I always say you have to enjoy your job, enjoy what you're doing, really get something out of it. Because if you don't get something out of it, I feel like it's not the right thing.
Absolutely.
So
that's how seeing you and Andy Chu. Fun. It's fun. It's like,
yeah.
we may be competitor. You guys are competitors.
Yeah.
It's like you have fun with your job.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you have fun with your competitors. You respect your competitors.
Yeah.
Great. Because that's the people that drive you. You want to be better than your competitor, and they drive innovation, we drive innovation, and it's a great thing. So I think competitors are awesome, and we want to be number one and stay number one, and we are number one. But it's still, that doesn't come from anything. It's a hard work, and it's consistently basically thriving for improvements and working with your customers and your partners all the time, because we don't make all the innovations. Most customers come to us and say, hey, can you help us with this? And out of this, a lot of innovation comes.
Oh, absolutely. So they got a problem and you develop a solution to address that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. For new, I guess, emerging leaders, how's AMT helping with emerging leaders? Because I know.
Yeah, I'm board member of AMT. I think AMT gives a great platform, for young people as well. If you ever have the opportunity, you can talk to the young, to have a young leader team there. If you become member, I always recommend to go to some of the events that AMT offers, like the MT Forecast, or the MFG. These are two events that, they have helped me a lot. I went there basically just before I became a CEO, and they helped me a lot, because you see all the other industry leaders and you can walk up, talk to them, they're open. So I think it's really great. And, maybe, if you have the opportunity to become, a part of one of the leadership teams, it's really valuable. And it gives you a lot of insights, because you can see what other companies do. You can see what other people in the industry do. And people are pretty open, I think, in our industry. It's a small industry.
Yeah.
And I think people are pretty open. To talk about, their experiences and how they handle things and how we would handle things.
Absolutely. So. I like that too. And I think one of the key things is for people to ask the questions, right? If you're new to the industry, find mentors, find people.
Yeah.
Everyone's willing to talk for the most part, kind of walk you through stuff that they've been through and situations that they've overcome.
Yeah, and mentors are very important. My former boss here, Roger Pinney, he still today, I talk to him, I ask him for help, but also other industry leaders, that you can go and speak with is very helpful, because there's always things that come in a career that you're like, okay, so how do I handle this? And other people maybe have done it already. So it's very, very helpful to have connections like that.
So are there any examples of that happening where maybe a project or something and you've relied on a mentor to help you get over some of those? And maybe it's even limiting beliefs. I know when you first start out in a career too, it's like you don't think you're capable of a lot of stuff possibly.
Yeah, I think when you start out, you're like, oh, this is gonna be a lot, and so I think as a CEO, you start out to. I think the biggest thing that drive me today is personnel issues. You have personnel situations that are sometimes not that easy to handle, and that's where it's nice to have somebody to talk to and go back. And I think I would do the same if I have people, if I have a young manager that never had a situation like this, whatever, many things can happen in life with people, so it's like, I'm more than happy to give advice to how to handle this situation, and typically they're, you're always worried about it, but they're pretty straightforward, I mean, we're all humans. We all have sometimes, ups and downs, and they influence our daily work, because I mean, your work life is very close connected. So, you can have trouble at home. And, you should be able to talk to your boss about it, in my opinion, to find a solution, because sometimes these are just short term, they can be resolved and then life goes on. And I think that's helped me a little bit, when I had a situation like this, I could go back to like a former leader or somebody and ask them, how would you handle this situation? And typically the advice was always a very, very good one. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is being able to have people in the industry that you can rely on for guidance and mentorship.
Yeah, and this is how we try to grow also young people here. We started an apprenticeship here, that we're doing, where basically the kids go through I say kids, I mean, they're out of high school, maybe I should say young adults. So, their time here, they go, 2 years to school and 2 years to work in the factory at the same time. And then they have they jump around for another year, and then they kind of select which direction they want to go, and then they kind of go into the workforce. But we give them a lot of time to decide which direction they want to go, and we give them basically the same education that we would give in Germany. So they have 2 years of apprenticeship, they file metal, they do all of this. And I think this was helped me a lot when I started out, kind of get the feeling for this industry and see what is it all about and what you like. Because people, at the beginning when you're young, you're not really sure which direction. You maybe have a hobby, this, that, the other, but you don't exactly know which direction you want to go. And I think apprenticeships are great, and they're, for that. And they're also great to bind people to the company, because they get introduced to the company culture, they live the company culture, and hopefully they stay with us. We'll see. But, it's a good thing. And everybody out there talks about workforce development and issues they're having and future leaders and all of these things. You gotta do things yourself. I mean, if you want to wait for the government to come something up, good luck with that. So we decided we're just going to move forward, do it ourselves. I mean, at the moment we have, 11 apprentices here. We get another 5 more in July. So, awesome. Growing them, and some stay for the whole time, but we had also some people that drop out, they maybe got a ride with, college for free, which I understand, and they go there. Or they maybe said they do it and they're like, this is not for me. I want to do something else. But most kids stay and they go through it. And I think they have a great experience. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, workforce development is definitely a huge one. For these, I feel like there's a lot we can learn from Germany too, and how they set up their programs, right?
Yeah.
So you're following similar things said to Germany?
Yeah, the most difficult for us is the college. So we work with Sinclair College, and what we would like to see is basically have 2 days school full and then 3 days here. But at the moment, the kids basically have a class like every day, one here, one there. So the day is really disruptive, So they start doing a project here. Then midday, they need to leave, go to school, to a class. Then in the afternoon, they maybe come back, continue on the project. And this is where, I think there's still a lot of room for improvement here for the colleges to basically create really something that, hey, they only go there Monday, Tuesday, have school, have their 2 days, and then the 3 days they concentrate on what they're doing at work. Right now, it's still disruptive. I mean, don't get me wrong, it works, but it could be better. Okay,
more ingrained with your schedule.
And also, I think other companies would see it the same way.
Yeah,
because I mean, at the end of the day, they want to have the kids 2 days away and then 3 days here. also they were much more productive. We use some of the younger kids to make, to start making parts, on CNC machines. When they're a certain way along, they can do that and, help out. And that's how they learn, learn to become a machinist or become a service technician or become an application engineer. So,
That's really exciting. I'll definitely look into that too.
Mm.
Do you guys have that on your website?
We do. Yeah. They're also recognized by the U.S. government for it. So it's a program that's recognized by, Apprenticeship USA. So
Very nice.
yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about leadership, and future leadership. What I sometimes notice is, it's not easy to find people who want to do leadership. That's the other thing that you have to empower people, in my opinion. Empower people you trust them that they can do their job. You give them guidance, you give them targets, you give them goals, but you also need to empower them. Otherwise they will not develop to become leaders, really.
Yeah.
And they're always, if you try to always, control them too much and be in their way and let them not develop and also make mistakes maybe on and off, they will not become leaders. And I had the opportunity throughout my career. Yeah, I was allowed to make mistakes. And don't get me wrong, there was sometimes a tough talk to me, but I think I made my mistakes. I learned from them, moved on, and just didn't make them anymore. So
yeah, a mentor of mine, he talked about it with me. He's like, I basically set up, oh my gosh, the bumper rails for like bowling.
Yes.
He's like, and you just sit around and I'm kind of here to guide.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's
awesome.
That's a good example. Yeah.
And now, is there instances too, like if you don't set people up to empower and you're just trying to like build managers and leaders that maybe they don't want to be leaders or they're not cut out for it?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody doesn't have, if you ask, I always ask, do you want to be a leader? You want to do this? I also give people kind of the outlook, what it means, because I think the biggest first step, I think, is managing people. If you have to manage people, you're not only responsible for your own actions, but also for the actions of your team.
Yeah.
I think that's the kind of the first big step, because then you can see how different that can be. And for example, for me at the beginning, when I started out as a basically engineering manager, and I had a lot of engineers reporting to me. So, and engineers are a certain type, they're typically to a certain level they went to college, they have a certain education level.
Yeah.
They get a certain salary, and this, that, the other. And then after that, I, became operations manager. And then you work with people on the shop floor, and they're not as educated. Doesn't mean they're stupid. They're as intelligent, and it's just a different, what they value is different. And that's what you have to see. A person on the shop floor values things maybe completely different than an engineer in the office. And this is what you need to, if you want to become a leader of a company, that's what you need to learn to adjust to the different needs. I mean, for some guy, it's great to leave here at 2:30 and maybe go hunting or do whatever. He starts at 4. And for the other guy, it's maybe important that, he can do this, that, the other on the weekend. It's really, it's a broad, band of people, and everybody has their own desires and requirements. And I think if you can manage that well, accept that, I think it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so for all 3 of my kids, I parent differently.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that, like for leadership. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say
you have to lead people differently.
Yeah, lead people differently, and like I said, give them opportunity. And some people need a little bit more closer guardrails, and some people you can leave a little wider guardrails. So I think that's how same with kids, you have the little wilder kid and the not as wild kid, the little bit more responsible one. And you see also how they develop, how they get different.
Yeah.
I have 2 daughters, and, you can see how they change over time, how they get more responsible, how they get more of their own mind, and then they know more what they want to do. But there's times where they need guidance. And then there's times where you just need to, basically support them.
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So really, you're trying to develop them to be the best version of themselves, right? In their own way, because everyone's going to be unique in how they do.
Everybody has their own character. Everybody has their own thoughts, their own beliefs, also the cultural background. I mean, talking about a Swiss company, there's Europeans in here, there's Americans in here, there's Mexicans in here. Everybody's a little bit different from a cultural background. That's another thing that you need to respect, and you need to, kind of see how that is. A lot of people, some people are very close to their families, so family is very important. So you got to kind of keep a balance there, for people. Other people, they're loners. Like we have some service technicians. I mean, they want to be done all the time, gone, 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 gone. So, everybody has its place and career, so.
Absolutely. One thing I always like to ask is if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice before you got into manufacturing.
I would say do it again, because for me, manufacturing, I love it. I think I've seen so many things that maybe other people are not privileged to see how things are made, to see what's behind things that I use it on a daily basis, even if it's my coffee cup and my spoon in the morning, I think this is something that a lot of people take it as a given. They don't look behind that. And I think I really love the career that I had, and I would do it again. I mean, I had my ups and downs.
Yeah.
But overall, I think I'm very happy where I'm at. And, I love what we're doing. And I love working with our customers, being successful together. There's some customers that I have at the beginning of my career, they started maybe with a machine or two.
Yeah.
And they're a big shop and the whole family's in there. I think this is so satisfying. I can't even tell you how satisfying that is, so yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, what about one piece of advice for someone new getting into it?
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. Yeah. So somebody new, I would say, when you go into the business, be open-minded, be interested. The business, when you work for a company, the business might be looking very narrow, but it's big. So try to go out, if you can, go to a machine tool show, for example, if you have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Talk to different companies, look at different technologies. There's not only grinding, but there's also milling, EDM, water jets, whatever. There's so many different technologies.
Mm-hmm.
Go look at that. Go see what they do. And if you feel like, if you feel you're a person that wants to make something and, take that opportunity, maybe you can start your own business. I think there is so much opportunity in manufacturing. Don't be afraid to start your own business. Do you need a little bit of jump start and help maybe from a company? We have helped some small companies to start out with.
Yeah.
But it's, if you have the right mindset, just do it.
This is the last question is you versus Andy Chu in arm wrestling. Who's going to win?
I don't know. I give it to Andy. He's much younger, much more energetic. I'm sure he will beat me in arm wrestling. But, I invite him to come to IMTS. We can, at the booth, we can try it out.
That's awesome. Well, so where can people find you? LinkedIn?
Yeah. So I'm only on LinkedIn. I don't do any other social media. I'm kind of tired of social media. Yeah. So I like LinkedIn. It's about business. The contact data of me is on our website, grinding.com. If you go to About Us, you'll find my, contact card. Everything is on there. If anybody has a question or wants to know more, feel free to contact me. I'm open to answer questions. Also, if somebody's interested in the career in manufacturing, more than happy to help them. And we have also other people here in the house that are more than happy to help with information and advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Bunch of machines here too.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Feel free.
Of course, always machines. Yes.
Well, Markus, I appreciate your time.
Yeah. Appreciate it as well. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
And hopefully we see each other at the IMTS in Chicago.